Okay, today we want to talk about something that's a little bit controversial. It's called balancing over time, creating nutritionally complete and balanced meals over time instead of having every single meal being 100% complete and balanced. Some people say that we should have every single meal 100% complete and balanced. And there's another school of thought that says, well, they need a certain amount of zinc over the course of about 7 days. You can give it all in one day, or you can dribble it out over the 7 days, as long as we make sure that over a course of about 7 days, we are getting everything that our animals need. Some people who used to say balance over time was fine have now switched over and said, no, every meal has to be complete and balanced. I'm a little more of a balance over time type of person. I think about what I eat in a single day. There is no way that every meal I eat comes even close to the nutrients that I need over the course of a day. I don't even get it right over the course of a couple of days, so thank God I have a whole week to do it. Most of the times my pets do eat complete and balanced meals, but there are some times when, the other day I didn't have anything thawed out, so my dogs got scrambled eggs with sardines. That's actually pretty close to being balanced, but that was their breakfast. And I wasn't worried about it because I knew I was going to pick up with what we needed later on in the day or in the week. Not a concern for me. A species-appropriate diet is essential for the well-being of our pets. There are various approaches to doing that. So we have DIY, which is do it yourself. There's different DIY raw diets, such as Prey Model, Frankenprey, Barf. Some people want a lot of vegetable matter. Some don't want any. Some use grains. Some don't. There's so many different ways that we can feed our pets. But we do want to ensure that they're getting the needed nutrients in their diet. I was talking to someone the other day. He said that he spoke to another pet owner who had been feeding their dog chicken and rice. That's it. Chicken and rice for a very long period of time. That is so far from balanced. Please, please, please do not do that. Balance over time is making sure that we're getting all the nutrients that are required over a period of time, just knowing that we are getting the calcium, we're getting the trace minerals, we're getting the vitamins that we need. Do's and don'ts for balance over time. Balance over time method of feeding is only appropriate for healthy adult animals. This should never be done with kittens and puppies. They're in a growth phase and we need to make sure that we have things right for them. I would say the same thing for pregnant or lactating dogs and cats. They have huge nutrient requirements and we want to make sure that we get those right. Especially with those large breed dogs that are growing so rapidly, you want to make sure that you have everything that they need done the right way. So if you are going to DIY for any of those situations, make sure that you are well educated and that what you are doing is going to be suitable for that time frame for that animal. So certain nutrients do need to be provided daily, cannot be balanced over time because the body cannot store them. These include calories. You have to have enough calories in the day or over a couple of days. Macronutrients, so moisture, protein, fat, carbohydrates, amino acids, and water-soluble vitamins, because they don't store those. The fat-soluble vitamins, they're stored in the fat in the body and can be released, whereas water-soluble vitamins, they go in one end and out the other, and so we need to make sure that we are providing them. The fat-soluble vitamins, fatty acids, and minerals can be done a little bit more over time. How do we know that what nutrients are lacking and what foods to add? Some people use a ratio of 80-10-10, so the 80% food is meat, 10% is organ, and 10% is bone. There are typical nutrients that are deficient in those ratio diets, particularly ALA, fatty acids, EPA, DHA, fatty acids, which is the omega-3s, iodine, manganese, vitamin E, vitamin D, those are fat-soluble vitamins, and zinc. We get tons of vitamin A in those diets because vitamin A is very high in the organ meat. But we need to look in some other more specific places to get some of these things that are missing. The best way to know if something is missing is to use a formulation software, and we're going to go through that. The software includes nutritional data for thousands of ingredients, so you can look at something and see what is lacking and then figure out what you need to add to balance out that diet. The goal is complete and balanced nutrition, but with that said, nutrition is not an exact science for people and pets. We use guidelines from NRC that I think are from like 1980. And we also use AFCO, which is the Association of American Feed Control Officials, and FEDIAF, which is the European arm of that. The USDA, which is the United States Department of Agriculture, also gives us nutrient analysis, but they all use averages of the nutrients in the food. Wheat that's grown in Kansas is going to be very different from wheat that is grown in England. Beef that is confinement raised is going to have a different nutrient profile than grass-fed beef. Depending on the soil, how depleted it is, how much enrichment has been done, whether things are organic, if they've had chemicals added, there's a lot of different things that go into what the actual nutrient analysis is of a particular ingredient. The only way we would know is if we analyzed and did a nutrient analysis on every single ingredient of every single batch every time we harvested anything. And with that said, I had a representative of one food company say that they took a huge batch of their food and they took different core samples and had them all analyzed, and actually had them each sample analyzed at 2 different labs, and they were all from the same batch, and every analysis came back different. So people like to think this is an exact science, and I get people who go crazy saying, I need to know exactly blah, 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 blah. You can't know exactly unless you send it out, send every single morsel out for an analysis, in which case, by the time you get that back, you won't have fed it to your dog anyway. So the big thing about cats is they are not small dogs, so nutritional requirements for cats differ from dogs. Cats are obligate carnivores, whereas dogs can eat a lot more vegetable matter and do okay with it, versus kitty cats that really don't need very much. So they depend on nutrients found in animal flesh for their survival, well, animal parts. About 95% of a cat's diet should consist of animal flesh, skin, bones, and organs. Taurine is an essential amino acid for cats. They cannot make it themselves like dogs can. And they also have a higher requirement for B vitamins. So we need to make sure that we are formulating differently for cats than we are for dogs. Hare Today provides a variety of over 20 proteins. While many cats prefer rabbit, poultry is also a popular choice. I have to say my cats really love rabbit, but they also love quail, and I haven't tried the mouse yet, but my cats will eat just about any of the different proteins. So you might consider novel proteins like mice or cavies, which are guinea pig. I haven't tried that one yet either. Some cats may enjoy red meat such as beef, but others won't tolerate it. I have to say that's probably pretty low on the list for my cats. Please note that whole carcass products such as rabbit, mice, cavies, and quail should be fed with a balance of dressed or boneless proteins, because there's a lot of bone content there for the size of the animal, so we don't get as much muscle. And if we feed just that ground whole animal, like the whole mouse, the whole cavie, the whole quail, we could end up with a bone content that's too high, and then we're going to end up with some constipation issues. So whole carcass fiber has shown to be beneficial in feline diets, but high fiber may lead to lower amounts of pancreatic enzymes, which can decrease nutrient absorption. We're going to go through a couple of examples on the Animal Diet Formulator, which is a formulation software that pet parents can buy. A lot of the nutritionists also use this. This is the software that I use when I formulate recipes. They have various levels from pet owner software all the way up to commercial formulator software. First one we want to look at is using the Hare Today ground rabbit and formulated kitty cat diet. So we're going to put in here the pet type is going to be a cat, and I like using FEDIAF as my diet standard versus AFCO, and we're going to give it a name so that we can find it in the future. So this is going to be Hare Today Rabbit Cat, and we're going to use adult, indoor, sedentary, because that describes most cats. All right, so the first thing we have to do is add in the Hare Today ground rabbit bones and organs. We'll start with a pound of that, and then we'll be able to see that we've got mineral deficiencies, we've got vitamin deficiencies, and we have amino acid deficiencies, which there's our taurine. Rabbit is notoriously low in taurine, and cats have a high requirement for taurine. So we need to, when we look at this, we find that it's low in manganese, zinc, iodine as our trace minerals, vitamin D and E, choline, and taurine. All right, so we're going to add some eggs to take care of our vitamin D and also our choline. Eggs are a great source of choline. So 150 grams is 3 eggs. Okay, and we need to balance our some of our trace minerals. So we're going to add some mussels, 3 ounces of mussels. And then, okay, the mussels were a great source of taurine, so that solved our taurine issue, but we still have some trace mineral problems. Going to add in some oysters. They're a really, really good source of zinc. So the oysters took care of our zinc as well as our iron. We still need vitamin E, and we still need manganese and iodine. So whole hemp seed took care of the manganese. Still need vitamin E. So cod liver oil is a great source of vitamin E. Make sure you get the one without the added A and D. And that brings us down to our iodine, which we usually solve by adding a little bit of kelp. And about a half gram, which is about 1/16 of a teaspoon. And so now all of our vitamins, minerals, and fats are balanced using the rabbit. And our macro will give us the calories, 34.5 calories per ounce. So that is a complete meal now for our kitty cats. Okay, so we're also going to go through balancing a whole carcass mouse diet for cats. And this one's going to be easy because mouse is sort of one of the ideal meals. This is something my cats eat quite often, my outdoor cats. So we're going to choose cat. Again, I use FEDIAF instead of AFCO, and adult indoor sedentary kitty cats is generally what we're going to need, but if you have a very active cat, you could choose that as well. So we're going to start with the Hare Today whole carcass ground mouse. You can see they also have the ground cavies in there. I'm going to start with a pound of mice. That's a lot of mice. And we see we've got zinc and iodine deficiency, so some trace minerals, and vitamin E deficiency. And that is all we have to correct. I mean, that's amazing. So a mouse is pretty cool. So for zinc and iodine, we might look at adding some oyster. That took care of our zinc. We still need a little bit of iodine. And we still need our vitamin E. So for our vitamin E, we can use cod liver oil without A and D added because we don't need A and D. So a little bit of cod liver oil. And then for our iodine, kelp is usually our best source for that. And And there you go. Now we have a complete balanced diet for kitty cats. And we've got plenty of taurine in there. We don't have to worry about that. And this is almost 40 calories per ounce. So that's a nutrient dense recipe for our kitty cats. The whole carcass mouse does include fur. It is a good source of fiber and it aids in the cleaning of the digestive tract, but you should feed it in balance with some proteins without fur or feathers. Fiber at levels that are too high can lower amounts of pancreatic enzymes in cats and lead to a decrease in nutrient absorption. So if you're feeding this whole ground mouse or whole ground rabbit or whole ground cavies that includes the fur, that should be in rotation with other diets that are not including fur and feathers. But I think it's very beneficial to include whole prey items in the diet. I buy their whole ground rabbit with the fur and their whole carcass quail, and I rotate that in for my guys, both dogs and cats sometimes. And I think that's a great way to get variety into the diet and really keep the microbiome in good shape. There's no one correct way to feed your pets. We could have chosen a lot of different ingredients to add in here instead of the ones that we did. So if your pet can't eat whole chicken eggs, then you could find something else to replace that. That's the great thing about this software. Once you get used to it and you have an idea what kind of ingredients work for your pet, then you can play with it to figure out how to balance a meal. My goal is always to try to balance it using whole food sources rather than using synthetic vitamins or minerals. Hopefully this helps, and if you want to look into the Animal Diet Formulator software, I think it's really helpful, really beneficial. Not everyone can figure out how to use it. It has a bit of a learning curve. When I first started with it, I absolutely hated it. I got it and I didn't use it for the first year because I was so frustrated with it. The software has improved. That's been a very long time ago. The software has really improved the ease of use. There are tutorials in there and there are complete recipes in there that you can pay for that have been made by nutritionists. So hopefully this helps. Have fun.